Shalom, Hebrews. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. Okay, Hebrews. The Creator knew that the Hebrews will break the covenant. That's wrote down in, biblical history that, the Creator YAH knew, the Israelites will break the covenant. So, with that being said, that it should be some curses or some people afflicted on earth with identical history as the curses, or the curses, being on these people, and it's without a question that's how you could prove that biblical history is real, and that our enemies don't want the world to see this, because then the world stay blind, and then the enemy can continue to push their agenda. And then if they push their agenda, and then you look at the people who's pushing the agenda, oh man, you're gonna be horrified. The people that's pushing the agenda to keep biblical history hid are some Babylonian scribes. I got that explained in about 5 or 6 videos, how we Hebrews broke the covenant and abandoned our heritage to some Babylonian scribes. And those Babylonian scribes are responsible for what you call Western culture and Western civilization. And I got proof that the Hebrews, that the biblical history is based on, actually did break the covenant. And I can show you that the people from the transatlantic slave trade are those Israelites that the Creator made the prophecy against, that said that they will break the covenant. And we will go back to this is going to be in Deuteronomy. This is when Prophet Moses went and got the law, and then when he come back down, how we Israelites were on Egyptian religion. And this is a big thing to Hebrews, is that the Egyptian culture and the Babylonian culture are intertwined in this American cultures, like combined. The medical practices and so forth come from Egypt, and the laws and the administration and how this country govern itself, come from Babylon. And you can even see that this country got a Babylonian like heritage, is that they got on the Library of Congress, that they got the image of Nabu on the door. Now, why would they have the image of Nabu, on the door of the Library of Congress? See, Nabu on the door. The figure Nabu. Now, why would they have this Babylonian god, the god of writing and history and everything, they got to do with knowledge and so forth? Why would they have him at the door of the Congress, the Library of Congress? Is because we people in America, especially the Israelites, we are governed by the Babylonian laws, and the people who set up this country come from Babylon. It's a known fact, as I got proven in countless videos, how the Sephardi's and the Ashkenazis were like the first over here out of the European nations to do trade with the natives and so forth. In America, when they left Spain and Portugal, and went on across the waters into the Americas, and how did they colonize the Americas first? The Spaniards, but the Spaniards were the Sephardi Jews, who they call Morenos. I got a video showing how the Hebrews are confused about you know, who the Israelites were in Spain and so forth, and that, you know, no Hebrews, after the covenant was broken and we were chased out of Africa, how we never ruled in no other lands because we didn't go to any other lands, and how we sojourneyed in Africa to the transatlantic slave trade started. And you know, the transatlantic slave trade gonna be because we broke the covenant, and that the Creator had already made a pronouncement in the judgment on the covenant breakers way before it happened. And being that it came to pass, and that we are those Israelites, should let people know that it's a Creator, and that's what's trying to be hid today, is trying to keep our heritage hid. You know, the enemies of the Israelites in the past got new names today, you know, because of the Babylonian scribes, and their job has been to keep the real Israelites hidden from the world, so you don't see the Creator or biblical history come to pass. Because if you look at the people who are called Israelites today, the Jews, you don't see no curses on them, and that's why come, them controlling the media, how they get real mad when you point out stuff in relations to the scriptures that they don't fit, you know. But let's look at this here, how the Creator said that the Hebrews would break the covenant. So if the covenant was broken, then you should see some people with curses on them. And I'm going to go over some of them curses. And one of the curses that you could just see outright, and it's not happening not only in this community that I stay in, but communities throughout our captivity, how the foreigners keep coming into our neighborhoods, places that we preoccupy, and we are the majority, and how a small group of people, strangers, come in and own the land and the commerce and the economics of the community and stuff, and how everything fall into our hands, and how we end up with nothing. That's like recently, you know, in this city that I'm in, Memphis, man, the people from the Middle East, who I, classify as Edomites, coming to our community, and they done took everything over, and it's nothing for us in the community. And then that's like the Hebrews in California. Oh man, they suffering so bad, man, that if you look at the uh the face of the homeless in California, it's gonna be nothing but Hebrew Israelites, and how they suffering real bad, and how the housings is out of their reach, and how they don't have no place to go no more, and how, man, it's getting rough with us, and how this is kind of like fulfilling prophecy. I'm gonna show that prophecy, how it say how we gonna show that we don't have no place to stay, and how we moving to and fro throughout, our captivity with no permanent place to stay, and how we are the Hebrews, and how we just been going through all this drama, and how that the world need to start recognizing us as the Israelites because of the plagues that we have had on us in the past, up to now, starting from the transatlantic slave trade up to now. But yes, them Hebrews in California and in the West Coast suffering bad, and how the housing prices is out of their reach now, and how you have to get credit checks to even get a residence now, and how we are suffering bad, and it's another destruction program that they putting down on us. They've been putting all kind of destructive programs on us, since we've been here in captivity, trying to destroy us, our enemies, the people who brung us here to America, our ancestors, and how we suffering today, the people that are the byproduct of that, and how the world just try not to recognize that. And I'm gonna tell you something else. What these devils do, Hebrews, is how that they'll take the music industry, the rappers that sing wicked songs, and then use them as the statue of success that we should be trying to achieve, that's not achievable. And then how did they use those Hebrews in the entertainment industry to try to make it seem like that we all doing good because they doing good and so forth. Ah, man, it's horrible how we are caught up in being systematically destroyed as curses, calls for. And that's why we are the only people on the face of this earth that fit those curses that the Creator said that the Israelites would be under. And it's a known fact that, you know, Africa, they just can't say, what just part of Africa that, the Hebrews ran to after they broke the covenant and ran into Africa during the Babylonian Wars. And I got videos showing how the Hebrews ran into Africa and how that's the quietest history on the face of this earth, and how nobody ever want to talk about how the Hebrews ran into Africa during the Babylonian Wars, and how you ain't finna find no history, no books, or nothing explaining that, and how it's a mystery that that's the quietest kept history on the face of this earth, is that the Hebrews ran into Africa during the Babylonian Wars and disappeared off the maps of history, off recorded history. And it's a known fact that the people who was recording history at that time are actually the people that was placed in our land from Babylon. These people right here. These people right here was placed in our land during the Babylonian Wars. And they are responsible for Babylon's history. Babylon's history. And what a coincidence that we abandoned our heritage, our history, and our culture to the people that are responsible for Western civilization, being that they are Amorites, and that those Amorite culture is what the Creator gave us the culture to destroy. It's like we still got the culture within us to destroy the Amorite culture. And the Amorite culture is this Western civilization that we have today, that's wicked, that's basically the same abomination that the Creator told the Israelites to destroy, that's recorded in the Bible, in the Tanakh. It's a trip, man. There's a lot going on. And like I say, that our enemies don't want the truth about us being Israelites to be known, because if that's known, then it's like a domino effect with the wickedness, and how all the wickedness will fall down, and how that the wickedness are basically originate among a certain people, as recorded in biblical history, is that the wickedness come from the Amorite Canaanite culture, and how that Amorite Canaanite culture is what we have today, and that's what's classified as Western civilization. You can go get a dictionary or a encyclopedia would be best, and you look up Western civilization, and they gonna trace it to Babylon, and it's like Western civilization basically come from Babylon, and then it went to Europe, and then from Europe, to the Americas, and how this is the same culture that the Canaanites had. That's wicked. It's the same culture as the Egyptians had, and it's the same culture as the Babylonians had. And they come from the people that come from Sippar. And Sippar is a town. Sippar is a town in Babylon where they kept all the records and the cuneiform writings and the recordings of all the interaction that Babylon had with its gods, Marduk, Norajal, Nabu. That's like I just showed you the image of Nabu on the door of the Congress of the Library, and then that's gonna come from the Babylonian scribes that created the America administration and government and so forth, and how that they are from Sephardim, the people that created that, and they are called Sephardi today. And the Sephardis are the Sephardic, Sephardim, and the Sephardi Jews. Those are Sephardims, and those were Babylonian scribes, and they are Amorites, and they take the Amorite culture as well as Ashkenazi. They take the Amorite culture all around the world, and that's Western civilization, and that's where the wickedness come from, and how we Hebrew Israelites were supposed to destroy its roots. In antiquity, in the BC days, we were supposed to destroy the Amorites' root, and then that would have got rid of the wickedness, and the earth would have been like a paradise. But since we didn't destroy the Amorites and their culture, and it, got away, that's what's destroying the earth today, and how that the people on earth need to know who the real Israelites are in order to save humanity and so forth, and to save the earth. And this is how the people save the earth. I know it sounds crazy to some of you, but you would actually be saving the earth if you was to recognize that the people from the transatlantic slave trade are the Hebrew Israelites. And then we would have to come into our heritage, the knowledge of that, and to worship of the one creator, the creator Yah. And then, that'll start healing the earth, because, it's like now how they use us to manipulate and entrap other people in other cultures with the things that we do, and how we are the originators of like all things in a sense, and how that they use our wicked culture to entrap other ethnic groups and nations and peoples, throughout the earth with rap and so forth, and how that they done turned it wicked and use it to, manipulate. But let's go back to showing how the Creator knew that the Hebrews would break the covenant. And then I'm going to show you some of the curses, and then all this was set up for if we didn't get rid of the wickedness. See, we became part of the wickedness that we were supposed to have destroyed. That's messed up. Look, all right. And this is Deuteronomy 31:16. And the Elohim said unto Moses, like I said, Prophet Moses had, went up into the mountain, when we had left Egypt, some Egyptians came with us, and that wasn't a good thing, and how those Egyptians kind of, corrupted us when Prophet Moses left. And then throughout our whole journey from leaving Egypt, how we was rebellious, and how we didn't believe and trust in the Creator or Prophet Moses and so forth. So the Creator would knew that we will break the covenant at some point. And I can show during the Babylonian wars that happened, and how that's the quietest kept history on the face of the earth, is that the Israelites ran into Africa during the Babylonian wars. And once that started to be understood, then the people on the earth can start to get healed and so forth. Because then, they'll start to understand what's going on. All right. And the Elohim said unto Moses, this is Deuteronomy 31:16. And the Elohim said unto Moses, behold, thou shalt sleep with thy fathers, and this people will rise up and go a whoring after the gods of the strangers of the land, whether they go to be among them, and will forsake me and break my covenant which I made with them. Then my anger shall be kindled against them in that day, and I will forsake them, and I will hide my face from them, and they shall be devoured, and many evils and troubles shall befall them, so that they will say in that day, are not all these evils come upon us, because our Yah is not among us? And sure enough, that's the way it is today. All these evils and troubles and then befell us, and right now today in the Hebrew community. We saying that all this is a tribute because the Creator ain't with us because we broke covenant. All right. And I will surely hide my face in that day for all the evils which they shall have wrought, and that they are turned unto other gods. And that was the most important thing, like it is now today with our enemies, is to try to keep us on false religion and on false gods and so forth. You know, that's the enemy's biggest plan, and he get real happy when he know that he got you worshiping something you shouldn't be worshiping. You know, it's like us coming from the slavery days. You know, we know that they beat us and put the whip on us and controlled us and guided us and told us what to worship. And, you know, so we didn't have no choice. But now that slavery is over and information is available, ain't no way in the world any Hebrew Israelite should be worshiping anything that the enemies directed us to. Anything that the enemies directed us to, and we know for sure that the enemies ain't never told us that we was Hebrews, and to research Tanakh history and connect yourself to that. They ain't never did that. They ain't never did that, and they ain't gonna never do that. So therefore, the religions that's being put on us, and I have nobody in no culture, no ethnic group ever came and said, y'all the Hebrew Israelites and y'all should be worshiping this kind of way. They ain't never did that. So therefore, you know, the religions that we got since we've been in captivity is false and incorrect. And I got videos proving how Christianity and Islam was created for proxy wars, and how that the Sephardi's created Islam, and then how that the Ashkenazi created Christianity, and how they used them two religions to keep from fighting each other, you know, outright and so forth, and how that they've been having battles going on since we broke our heritage, and how they set the plantation system up, and how Ashkenazi got a long history in the Bible of selling slaves and owning slaves, as was stated in Ezekiel 38, how Ashkenazi sold slaves back then. Ashkenazi ain't never stopped selling no slaves and selling folks since then. And that's a fact, that Ashkenazi or the Sephardi's have never been brung to judgment to even stop doing the things that they did in the past. But you know, they sold folks, and that's part of their history. And Gomer and his bands, the House of Targumot, the North Quarters, and all his bands, man, there's a verse in here in Ezekiel telling you, you know, how Ashkenazi sold sold folks. Let me see. Let's go to 27. I hate when I turn to a verse and it ain't. All right, here it is. Javan, Tubal, Machich were thy merchants. They traded the persons of men and vessels of brass in thy market. You see what I'm saying? So, you know, this is Ezekiel 27, and then they show that Ashkenazi, Tubal kids, and the folks that's related to Japhet soul folks. And then, sure enough, Ashkenazi gonna be, you know, having their hands in our enslavement, and how did they help manage the slavery system here that we have been in captivity to, you know, which all, you know, relates to the curses and how we broke the curses, but how Ashkenazi and them sold folks, and how did they know how to set a plantation system up to strip you of your heritage and your culture and your ID, and how did they, you know, put they culture and everything in us, and then that's where they gave us that false god worship and so forth, believing in Jesus, or the Hebrew equivalent, whatever you want to call him, and how believing in that he a savior, and then how I got in countless videos how the New Testament is not what you think it is if you know historical information, and how the Ashkenazi were in the Discopolis cities, and how did Jesus spent this whole time amongst them and so forth. I got videos going into all that, but let's get back to these. What the Creator said, that the Hebrews would break covenant. So it should be some people on the face of this earth with curses on them, being that the Creator said that the Israelites will break the covenant. Alright, and as I read in Deuteronomy 31:16, how the Creator said, and the Elohim said unto Moses, behold, thou shalt sleep with thy fathers, and this people will rise up and go a whoring after the gods of the strangers of the land, whether they go to be among them, and will forsake me and break my covenant which I have made with them. And then my anger shall be kindled against them in that day, and I will forsake them, and I will hide my face from them, and they shall be devoured, and many evils and troubles shall befall them, so that they shall say in that day, are not all these evils come upon us, because our YAH is not among us? And I tell you that, that's the way it is right now today. And even Prophet Moses knew that we would break the covenant, and he even said it. So therefore, it should be some people on the face of this earth that has suffered the curses and are that direct affected by it. This is Deuteronomy 31:29. For I know that after my death ye will utterly corrupt yourselves, and turn aside from the way which I have commanded ye, and evil will befall you in the later days, because ye will do evil in the sight of the Elohim, to provoke him to anger through the works of your hands. And sure enough, evil have befell the people from the transatlantic slave trade. That's all we know is evil, and that's all we've been through is evil, and that's all our enemies have ever put us through is evil. And the evilness gonna stem from how we will be vulnerable to certain things that we wouldn't have no control of. That's like, if you get taken into captivity and you can't fight, you can't defend yourself, you can't escape, then you're going to be at the sole mercy of your captors. And if your captors are vicious, evil, wicked, and low down, then, all kind of evil's going to befall you. And that's what happened to us in the whole transatlantic slave trade. Descendants' history has been plagued with terrible tragedies and horrors and stuff. That's like now, all the people from the transatlantic slave trade, if you haven't came back to your Israelite heritage, then you're going to be semi-crazy, what I call, because you're going to have the mentality of your captors, and you're going to be crazy, and you ain't going to know what's going on, and you just going to be like a wild animal and so forth. And that's one of the things too, that how the people who we abandon our heritage to know how to reduce people and populations to the status of animals, where they can make the animal traits in how that you be just like an animal, just walking around on two legs and so forth, and how you won't have no moral understanding and no real connection to the Creator, and how you just gonna be almost on a level of a beast. Is how that our enemies know how to get you on that level, is because that they had civilization and been in control of civilization for thousands of years, and they done been through a lot of empires. Man, about 50, 60 empires they done been through since Babel. Since Babel. And after the Creator destroyed Babel and scattered the people with different languages, and how did these people are responsible for the universal English language that comes from the Latin and so forth, and how they're responsible for the written language, the people from Sepharvaim, the Babylonian scribes that we abandon our heritage to, and how they're responsible for the English language being recorded and written, and how that they done made that into a universal language to draw all people back together. How the Creator broke everybody up and gave everybody different languages and tongues so they couldn't put their mischief together. Well, these people now reunited everybody, and how they from a Babylonian system, and how you see that Babylonian system ring throughout the world, and how they tried to unite all nations into one, and they are the founders of the United Nations that's in New York. And not only what a coincidence is that the obelisk that we Hebrews were enslaved with in Egypt is in New York. I got videos going into Egyptian history and how that the obelisk that we was enslaved with in Egypt, and the Pharaoh that killed the prophecy king Josiah is in Egypt, Necho. And how the King Josiah, after we got free of the Egyptian religion for 31 years, after being on it for 300 something years, and then that's another thing, how did they try to, talk about the minor prophets? Have you Hebrews ever heard of that term called minor prophets? And I can show that none of those prophets were minor, and that how all the prophets were major, from Job, Hosea, and Amos, and how all those prophets basically came after we start messing around with that Egyptian religion that was put on us, and that kind of stayed with us after we exited Egypt to get the new culture that would extinguish the Ammonite culture, the Canaanite culture, and how did that, Egyptian culture stayed on us, and how our enemies, and we in captivity now, got the same symbols that signified our enslavement in the promised land is here now, and how that it's in New York where the United Nations at, and that's the organization that the Babylonian scribes set up, the Sephardi's set up, and Ashkenazi set up to reunite the world, and make the world one that they can have, control over. But this here is the obelisk that we was enslaved from. We Hebrews would have seen this obelisk. Prophet Moses possibly could have touched this obelisk, and it's in New York, and it's called the Cleopatra needle, which is a misnomer. You know what I'm saying? That this was around. It's called the Cleopatra needle. They give old slick names to ancient objects that was even before Cleopatra by thousands of years, and how that it was in Heliopolis where we was enslaved from, and where Pharaoh gave Joseph, the priest of own daughter, and how Joseph would have the two kids, Ephraim, Manasseh, and Ephraim, and how the tribe of Ephraim, kept the Egyptian culture on us, which would make us lose our covenant, when we ran into Africa to do the Egyptian worship. But our enemies that control the plantation system, and that control this country, that set up the United Nations, got symbolic images of our enslavement. That's like Necho gonna be the Pharaoh that killed King Josiah, that would put us back on the Egyptian religion. And then how did the Egyptian religion how the Egyptian religion would be the reason why we Hebrews, broke covenant. Excuse me for that interruption. All right, so that's Necho, and that's the the obelisk that's in Central Park that we was enslaved with, that was stowed up during our enslavement in Egypt, and that's the statue of King Necho, who killed King Josiah, who freed us from the Egyptian religion. And then after that, King Josiah was killed, we would go into Africa and break covenant, which would fulfill the prophecies that the Creator said, that how the Hebrews will break covenant. Now he told us way during Exodus time, this about 1446 BC, way before, just a few years before Prophet Moses passed away. And, it come to pass. And Prophet Moses even said we will break the covenant. As I've read that, he said that evils and troubles will befall us in the latter days. And then the blessings and curses were outlined. And the curses are supposed to be the punishment that the Hebrews would find themselves in once covenant was broke, and that they would have a heritage and a culture like no other. And how our culture and heritage and the people from the transatlantic slave trade, which I'm going to trace the Hebrews from the promised land into Africa, and how we are the people from the transatlantic slave trade, and how we, fulfill the curses and so forth. All right. And after Prophet Moses had, made his speech, and he said this, and it shall come to pass if thou shalt hearken diligently. He was on, the mountaintop, and he was giving us, the last ceremony. He was telling us, that if we broke the covenant, that certain things would happen to us, and that those certain things, would happen to us, man, would, be the consequences of us breaking the covenant and doing the Egyptian religion. And, I show for a fact also in other videos how Christianity and the worship of Jesus ain't nothing but that IS horse Egyptian religion too, and how it could be classified as an Egyptian religion. All right, this is Deuteronomy 28. And it come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Elohim, to observe and to do all his commandments which I command thee this day, that the Elohim thy Yah will set thee on high above all nations on the earth. And then I can show in the book of Amos how it basically explained how we was, man, had so much wealth and was doing so good, and how we was evil and wicked and rotten at the same time. I want to go into what they call the minor prophets that are not minor, after I get, some of these curses read, and we get understanding that we are the Israelites that broke the covenant. And all these blessings shall come upon thee and overtake thee if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Elohim thy Yah. Blessed shall thou be in the city, blessed shall thou be in the field, blessed shall thou be of thy fruit of thy body, and the fruit of the ground, and the fruit of thy cattle, and the increase of thy kin, and the flocks of thy sheep. Blessed shall be thy basket and thy store. Blessed shall thou be when thou comest in, and blessed shall thou be when thou goest out. Yeah, you can't be nothing but blessed if we done got rid of them Canaanites and that evil, wicked culture that they represented, the adultery, the stealing, the killing, the robbing, the false worship, and the homosexual activities, and all the things that are corrupt and wrong in a society is what, basically they stood for, that we were supposed to get rid of. So it would have been blessings if we would have did that. Thou shalt cause thine enemies that rise up against thee to be smitten before thy face. Thou shalt come out against thee one way and flee before thee 7 ways. You know what I'm saying? We'll make our enemies get on down and run from us and be terrified if we followed the covenant, as it is this day too, that they don't want Hebrews to be connected to their real heritage, and how that they would, rather you stay ignorant and dumb and and deceived and perpetrate the culture that they done presented to you, what they call black culture and Black History Month. That's nothing. It's connected to nothing ancient, and it's only connected to the slavery days. And it's a culture that our enemies created for us. Black History Month and all that old madness. They don't explain nothing. They don't explain our origin, where we come from, or anything in the past. And it's a known fact that if you don't understand or be connected to your past, that you can't be connected to the future. All right, the Elohim shall command thee the blessings upon thee in thy storehouse and in all that thou settest thee in hand unto, and he shall bless thee in the land which the Elohim thy Yah giveth thee. The Elohim shall establish thee an holy people unto himself, and he hath sworn unto thee, if thou shalt keep the commandment of the Elohim thy Yah and walk in his ways. And basically, guess what that was? For us Hebrews not to be robbing each other, killing each other, and stealing each other, and taking from each other. That's basically all the law required. And then how we should give to the poor, and help the needy, and help the widow, and so forth, and be kind to each other. That was basically our only instructions. You see how we are evil and wicked towards each other today, and how we are just cruel and merciless towards each other, but you won't be that way to your enemies and so forth. Well, that's what the Creator didn't want. He wanted us to be, don't have no mercy towards the enemy, but be gracious and mercy to our kind and stuff. But we didn't do that. And the Bible, the Tanakh history is full of it. How we was bloody, evil, wicked killers, and wicked. You know what I'm saying? That's like now in the rap culture, how they done highlighted the killing, the evil, the wickedness, and all that old evil, wicked stuff that the Creator said don't do to each other, and how they sang about it and make that, part of a daily routine here in this old wicked captivity. But it's going to come to an end, because we Israelites finna start coming to our heritage, and we finna start rejecting all them heathens that function like that. Let me see. All right, this is 2018. And all the people of the earth shall see that thou art called by the name of the Elohim, and they shall be afraid of thee. See what I'm saying? That's like now. That's one of the reasons why they gave us them old slavery names, to keep the true name of the Creator from being attached to us. Because if they got the Creator, you know what I'm saying, if we got the Creator name on us, that put fear in our enemies. Our enemies are, you know what I'm saying, because they know who the Creator is. It's just we the people that's been confused. We've been confused almost since day one, since we got into Egypt. And how that, before we come into Egypt and we was just with our father Jacob, how we just followed and believed in the Creator, and how we didn't get corrupted till we went into Egypt. And I can show that real easy. Go to Ezekiel 23. Ezekiel 23. He gonna tell you. The word of the Elohim came unto me, saying, Son of man, there were two women, the daughters of one mother, and they committed whoredoms in Egypt. They committed whoredoms in their youth. There were their breasts pressed, and there they bruised the tents of their virginity. And the name of them were Ahala the elder, and Abala her sister, and they were mine, and they bore sons and daughters. This were their names. Samaria is Ahala, and Jerusalem is Abala, northern and southern kingdom. And that was, we was messed up on the Egyptian religion, and we got messed up on that Egyptian religion. It is after King David passed away, and his wicked son Solomon come on the throne, and how Solomon married the Egyptian woman, and then how that the Egyptian woman, that connection would allow the Egyptians to come across the land. And I got videos showing that Solomon got horses and so forth that he traded with the Hittites and the other nations that we were supposed to be against and so forth. And how that, that the Egyptians kept us on their religion, and then that's how they did trade, and how Egypt survived. And I show in the videos that how that if we did the covenant, that would have been over with for Egypt as well as the Mesopotamian culture. That's like now. This culture is threatened. These folks are threatened if we come into our Israelite heritage. It's a threat to them. Meaning they can't stand up for us to come into our Israelite heritage, because if we come into our Israelite heritage, then it's the end of their wicked, evil culture. And they know this, and that you don't have to pick up no guns and bombs to defeat your enemy. All you got to do is worship Almighty Yah and come into your Israelite heritage. And that would start the beginning of the defeat of our enemies. And they know this. And that's why they put extra emphasis on you staying black, Negroes, and African Americans and having a integrationist type of mentality. Because if you have a integrationist type of mentality, then your mind ain't strong enough to overcome them Babylonian scribes that got thousands of years of governing people and so forth. These people right here got thousands of years of governing people. That's why come they sit in the background right now, and they can control the resources of a country's or a nation. They can control the resources, the money. And that's like how the whole Western culture and this banking system is in those two groups' hands. Ashkenazi and the Sephardi Jews right now today. Alright, let's get back to these curses. Alright, so we know that if we had followed the Creator and did what we were supposed to, which, we would have had his name on us, and how our enemies would have been terrified, man, of that. And all the people of the earth shall see that thou art called by the name of the Elohim, and they shall be afraid of thee. And the Elohim shall make thee plenteous in goods, in the fruit of thy body, and in the fruit of thy cattle, in the fruit of thy ground, in the fruit which the land of thy land, which the Elohim sware unto thy fathers to give thee. The Elohim shall open up his good treasures, the heavens, to give thee rain unto thy land, and in season, and to bless all the work of thine hand. And thou shalt lend unto many nations, and thou shalt not borrow. Now that curse, that blessing is significant, and because it's a curse also that showed that how our enemies will have dominion over us in our communities, and how we would have to borrow from him, and that's going to his stores, buying his stuff, and enriching him, and how that they would control our community from top to bottom, the resources. And sure enough, that's what happened, and that was a curse that's spoken. And then that curse is going to be uh, Deuteronomy 28, 29. Let's see now. Let's see, 28, 29. No, that's going to be 28:45. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, until thou do. No, 44. And he shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. The strangers that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. And it's a known fact that every ethnic group, even the poor Hispanics that come from Mexico with nothing, come across the the land, the borders with nothing, and how did they get in our neighborhood and get above us and own the businesses and everything, and how that, we've been here for hundreds of years, and how some people just come over in 3 years, and now they got businesses and control our communities. The same with the so-called Middle Eastern people, them Edomites and them Arabs and so forth, and how they done come to our communities, and how they own all the stores, the gas stations, and everything, the corner stores, and how it's nothing for us, and how we have to go slave and labor for the slave owners' children inside their companies to make it, and how It ain't finna be nothing left for us before long. And all that signify these curses that the Creator said will be on us. And this is what Prophet Moses said. All right. And Elohim, all right. All right. But it shall come to pass, this is Deuteronomy 15, but it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Elohim thy Yah, to observe, to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Cursed shall thou be in the city, and cursed shall thou be in the field. You know, that's a fact. Cursed shall thy basket be in thy store. Cursed shall thy fruit of thy land in thy body. You know, everything that, you know, was about us, you know, that's like all them businesses that we created when we got here and got off the plantation and got to move around some. The enemies took all them and destroyed all those communities that had thriving businesses. You know, the Oklahoma bombings and Florida bombings and burning towns up and all kind of stuff. All those was curses. Elohim shall send upon thee vaccine, rebuke, and all that thou settest thy hand for unto do, until thou be destroyed, until thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doing, whereby thou hast forsaken me. All right, and thy heaven and thy that is over thy head shall be brass, and the earth that is under thee shall be iron. The Elohim shall make the rain as the land of powder and dust, and heaven shall it come down upon thee until thou be destroyed. And some of those curses come upon us when we was off the land in the Sahara, how the Creator made the water dried up on us, and how that we would start to break up under our false name Gramentian, and how we start having conflict with the other Africans, and then that would translate into the transatlantic slave trade. I got videos covering that. All right. The Elohim shall cause thee to be smitten before them enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them, and shall be removed in all the kingdoms of the earth. So that would take ships. That would take ships to do that. That would take ships to do that. And back then they didn't have no airplanes and stuff like that. So, you know, they had ships, and that was one of the curses, that you would be taken to Egypt in ships. And it's a known fact that the Egyptian system is set up here. I just showed you the Egyptian obelisk and the statue of Necho, who killed King Josiah. So, you know, this curse, we know that, you know, the people from the transatlantic slave trade fulfilled. All right. The Elohim shall smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart. And that's the way it is now today. And that's the way it was on the plantation. How 1,500 slaves governed by 2 or 3 slave owners, no pigmented slave owners, and how we would be terrified and everything, and couldn't understand, you know, because the Creator had took our courage and our strength and our heart away, and so forth. And we was in a strange land with a beast over us. And thou shalt grope at noonday, as the vine gropeth in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. See, no man could save us, not even that Jesus could save us from the transatlantic slave trade. That's like now, you know, what in the world do we need a Jesus for, or somebody to come save us after we done did the transatlantic slave trade? It seemed like if it was a Jesus, he would have been trying to help them slaves that was enslaved, being captured from Africa for 275 years, and them going back and forth from America to Africa, kidnapping folks. And then I show in history that all Africans wasn't kidnapped. Like the pygmies, wasn't kidnapped. The Ethiopians, the Berbers, and the Berbers right up here where the action was. None of them was kidnapped. The Watusis, no Egyptians, no Igabus. Man, it's a whole host of Africans that were never enslaved. And yet, you know, we tried to identify with the whole continent and how that's impossible to be connected to all those peoples when none of them wasn't enslaved. I got a video showing you Hebrews that when we ran into Africa during the Babylonian Wars, how we went into the Sahara, and that's where they got us from, and how our first derogatory name was called Gramentian, and then how did they, the Gramentian Empire broke up, and then how we would have conflict with the other Africans, and then that would translate into the transatlantic slave trade when the other Hamite subgroups come from Spain and, started the kidnapping. Alright. And we know that ain't no other people been through this. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and thou shalt not gather the grapes thereof. Moses knew that they would be working with some type of plant that was used for economy and grapes. Back then, that's what they sold and stuff. But cotton, what we would eventually, work with and so forth. And that was in the slavery days. And then how we built them houses and couldn't live in them, and how the slave owner got a strong legacy of how he went and raped them Hebrew women, and how that the men didn't have no power to do nothing. Look, all right. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and then I shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thee in hand. And that sure enough happened. The fruit of thy land and all thy labor, which a nation which thou knowest not, eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always. So that happened to us. So that thou shalt be mad. Thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. And we been pure turned crazy in the plantation, on the plantation, and the stuff that they done did to us, and the wicked culture that they done forced upon us. And the Elohim shall bring thee and the king which thou shalt set over thee unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known. And thou shalt serve other gods, wood and stone, some worthless gods. And it's a known fact that we Hebrews knew of all the nations in the past. And the Babylonians we knew about. Them folks up in Hittit we even knew about. Japhet descendants up in the north and so forth. And how that America was that new land, and how that in the Sahara we had plenty Hebrew kings, and how that they would kidnap us, and that's how Hebrew would be on the plantation picking cotton, talking about I was a king over there in Africa. I was a king where I come from, and so forth. It's because that they snatched the kings up too. Alright. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb and a byword among all nations where the Elohim shall lead thee. And right now they call us Negroes, blacks, African Americans, and all kind of wicked names. Let me see. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go in captivity. And we know that the traps and the evils that they done set up, that the youth get sent off to prisons at a young age, and that their mind gets snatched up, all kind of stuff. And here's that evil, wicked curse that show you that we the Hebrews, because all the strangers that is within us and got above us, every last one of them, and it's something you can see right now today. The strangers that is within thee shall get above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Elohim thy YAH, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he command thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder. Now listen, that's how you know. That's like I say that the Creator knew. That the Creator knew that the Hebrews broke the covenant. So it should be some signs and some wonders upon these peoples that broke the covenant. And I'm finna show that the Hebrews ran into Africa during the Babylonian War. So if the Hebrews broke the covenant as the Creator say would happen, as I show in Deuteronomy, that he said that he know we gonna break the covenant, and that, and Moses even said, man, they gonna break the covenant. So we done broke the covenant, so therefore you should see signs of them curses on the Hebrews. You should see signs. And that's what black history been the whole time. These curses, and how our enemies that control Western civilization has been trying to keep that hid. They don't want that to be hid, because then you will see the connection of us to the Creator, and then you'll understand why all these things are going on with us, as well as what's going on in the world, and how that evilness is spread throughout the world. Is because we Hebrews didn't get rid of that Canaanite culture in the Bible that we were supposed to have. All right. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and shall pursue thee, meaning that even if you try to run and take off, that they're going to come after you. And that's what happened in the book of Jeremiah during the Babylonian wars, when we said that we don't want to do the covenant no more, and how we was going into Egypt to worship their religion. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Elohim thy Yah, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder upon thy seed. Well, it's shown up been upon us. Well, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies. Let me see. Because thou servest not the Elohim thy Yah with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Elohim shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and want of all things, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. And it's a known fact that the Egyptians didn't get the Iron Age till later on. And how did they use it? Brass and so forth. And how that they wouldn't have no, they had to import iron and stuff, because they didn't have the iron, to make the yokes and stuff like that. And how did they use brass and bronze and that type stuff. And how the iron, they didn't have no iron industry till later on. And how did, the iron industry gonna come when we, Israelites, was in captivity, and then they made all them iron shackles for millions of folks. Millions of folks got a good iron industry going. All right. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Elohim shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and nakedness and want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. The Elohim shall bring a nation against thee from far, as swift as the eagle fly. A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. And that's like right now, I don't speak proper English now. And I don't care. Man, I got bad pronunciations of words and so forth. And they ain't never been educated like, these heathens want us to be educated in their system, so you can lose your way and never come back to your heritage. So, all right, and a nation of fierce constance, which shall regard not the person of the old, nor show favor to the young, and he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land until he have destroyed. Just like all the stuff we get, man, they take and take advantage of. But how this would translate into this right here. This is the most important one. And the Elohim shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships by the way whereof I spake unto thee, and thou shalt see it no more again, and thou shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondmen, and no man shall buy you, meaning nobody can redeem you. Back in the days, a nation come up against you and take you into slavery. Somebody can come bring some gold and free everybody. You could be redeemed and stuff. And it happened countless times in Tanakh history, where the enemies fell up on us by surprise, and then we had to give them some gold and stuff to back them up off of us. Well, that couldn't happen once the covenant was broken. And then I'm going to show you what would cause all these curses. I ain't read all of them, just the ones that's most significant that you can see without a shadow of a doubt that other people wouldn't fit. All right, if you go to the book of Jeremiah, and then I show that we only lived in the promised land for a total of about 800 years, maybe 810 years at the most, and that we didn't live in the promised land that long to leave a significant culture, and how that we was on our enemy's culture the majority of the time. And I only show that we maybe totally got 200, 300 years of doing the covenant, and then that would be between prophet Samuel, King Saul, and King David. That's like 130 years of history, and then Joshua, and then with Moses, man, we don't, you know what I'm saying, and then the little times in the Judges where we was enslaved so many times during the Judge period, we was enslaved so many times. It's like the Hebrew Israelites are the most enslaved ethnic group on the face of this earth. We done been enslaved with other people so many times, and how we kind of immune to a slavery is how we is now. How we won't get up and flee and run and try to get away from our captors, and how we just try to assimilate and be part of our captivity. It's the same history as in the Bible, the way the Israelites been the whole time. All right. That's why I say, is Israel a homeborn fool? Okay, let me speed it up. During the time of Jeremiah, you know, we had a whole bunch of things that we went through, you know, before we got, you know, to the Babylonian captivity, but it all translate into us not following the covenant. And we really got off the covenant is around 931 BC, is around when Solomon's death, and then Jeroboam come out of Egypt with the golden calf that only symbolized Ra Ptah, the Amen Ra Ptah religion and so forth, and how the golden calf is just the symbol of it, like what the cross is to all the branches of Christianity. Well, you know, we followed that religion, and then, you know, that messed us up after King David's death, and Solomon come on, and then when Solomon died, Jeroboam put them two golden calves on us, the Egyptian religion, and how we would stay on it from 931 all the way up to King Josiah was born around about 631, and he started to clean it up around about 640 or something like that, and how we would only be free of Egyptian religion for 31 years, and how the Egyptian, that Necho, that I showed you the image of, how he would come kill King Josiah, and then put us back on the Egyptian religion, and then how we would run into Africa, and how we was never heard of again. And then I explained how the Babylonian scribes, the people who we abandoned our heritage to, record the whole Western history, and then they started recording biblical history after we ran into Africa to do the African culture and religion. And then this is us running into Africa, and then I'm gonna go back and try to show, you know, some of the other history with Jeroboam, you know, causing us to get on the Egyptian religion. All right, if you go to Jeremiah 44, and then as you read, you know, this is us being chased out the land, because after King Josiah was killed, and then the Egyptians come in and they put Jehoiakim on the Egyptian religion, and then, you know, we would go to the Egyptian religion, and then the Creator sent for Ashkenazi, the Babylonians, the Chaldeans, that had Scythians, Ashkenazi as his army, and they are the ones that extinct the Assyrian population, and how that they will come chase us into Africa. All right, Jeremiah 44. Verse 15, 16, 17, 18. Then all the men which knew that their wives had burnt incense unto other gods, and all the women that stood by, a great multitude, even all the people that dwelt in the land of Egypt and Pathros, answered Jeremiah, saying, As for the word that thou hast spoken unto us in the name of the Elohim, we will not hearken unto thee, but we will certainly do so whatever thing go forth out of our own mouth, to burn incense unto the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, as we have done, we and our fathers, our kings, our princes, in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem. For then we had plenty of food, and were well, and saw no evil. But since we left off to burn incense unto the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, we have wanted all things, and have been consumed by the sword and by famine. We ran into Africa to do the Egyptian religion during the Babylonian wars, and that's what the book of Jeremiah is about. And it tell you how sin was on the same level as Sodom and Gomorrah, and how it wasn't nobody righteous in the land. And then the Creator sent Ashkenazi in to get us. That's gonna be these people right here that come from the car. These people right here. He sent them in to get us. And he sent them in to get us. He sent them in to get us to chase us off the land. And then, that would translate into the transatlantic slave trade. And that's how we got the curses on us, because, we broke the covenant. And then that's how you shouldn't see no other people on the face of this earth suffering like that but the people who done broke a covenant, or broke the covenant that the Creator said would happen. And like I showed you that we ran into Africa, and how those Hebrews never returned out of Africa is when that the Persians defeated the Babylonians, and then how those Israelites had a chance to come back out and go back to the promised land, and that never happened. There's no history in the Tanakh after the Babylonian wars or what happened to the Queen of Heaven worshippers, as I just showed. And those were the people that ran into Africa, as I got videos showing that it never was any 10 lost tribes, and how all the tribes went into Africa. And if you read Hezekiah's history, King Hezekiah and King Josiah's history, you will see that this was after the Assyrian captivity, and how that all the Israelites were still in their heritage. Or here's all the people running into Africa, 2 Kings. And all the people, both small and great, and the captains of the armies arose and came to Egypt, for they was afraid of the Chaldeans. This what happened during the Babylonian wars. And this is the people that would eventually get the curses, who translate into us, people that are called blacks, Negroes, that are descended from the transatlantic slave trade. Alright, Hebrews, this is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. And it's easy to show we Hebrews. It's easy to show we Israelites, because those Hebrews that ran into Africa during the Babylonian wars never returned home. Never returned home. And that's what the book of Jeremiah is about. And how that they never came back when the Persians defeated the Babylonians that had control of Egypt. And how that those Hebrews never came back. There's no mention of the Queen of Heaven worshippers nowhere in history. And how we abandoned our heritage to these people right here that was placed in our land in 722 BC. And how 134 years later we ran into Africa during the Babylonian wars. And here's the Sephardims, the Sephardims, the people, the Babylonian scribes that's responsible for Babylon's history. And this is 2 Kings chapter 17 verse 24. And the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon, and from Cuddar, and from Abel, and from Hamath, and from Sepharvaim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. And they possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof. That's going to be these people right here. That's going to be these people right here. That's going to be them. That's going to be them, the Sephardims. That's the Sephardic, and Sephardim. They'll try to trick you and try to say, well, Sephardi means Sephard, which means Spain. But the name Sephardim existed before Spain was even a nation or even a recognized land. And how that those are ethnic pointer terms, like Ashkenazi. That's an ethnic pointer term in the Assyrian Empire, called Ashkenazi by his name, Eshkenu, Ashkenazi. And then how that the Babylonian scribes would hide it and call them Scythians, hiding their heritage, hiding both of their heritage. And then, That's what the world have today. And then they think that those uh, Babylonian scribes are Hebrew Israelites because of the misinformation and so forth that they done put out. All right, Hebrews, this is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood.